I want to start today by talking about a feeling we've all experienced, but often don't like to admit being ignored. Whether it's not getting a reply to a message, feeling left out of a conversation, or noticing that our efforts at work go unnoticed, it stings. It's that sharp, uncomfortable pain that makes you question your worth and wonder, am I even seen? I think we can all agree on one thing: it hurts. And that hurt is real because as human beings, we crave connection. We want to be seen, heard, and valued. When we're ignored, it feels like a rejection of our very existence, like a spotlight suddenly went out, leaving us alone in the dark dot. The gifts of imperfection explores the power of embracing our true selves, letting go of the constant pressure to be perfect, and living a wholehearted life. At its core, the book emphasizes the importance of cultivating a deep sense of worthiness and the courage to be imperfect. In a society where we are often judged by our accomplishments, appearances, and how well we meet expectations, the idea of embracing imperfection may seem counterintuitive. However, the author invites us to rethink our perceptions of vulnerability and authenticity as key components of living a fulfilled life. The book begins by highlighting how perfectionism is often misunderstood. Perfectionism is not the same as striving for excellence or self improvement. Instead, it is an external, defensive response to internal feelings of inadequacy and shame. When we chase perfection, we are not striving to be our best selves. We are striving to avoid criticism, judgment, and blame. Perfectionism is rooted in the desire for approval and the fear of disconnection, leading us to believe that if we can just be flawless, we will be loved and accepted. However, this mindset only creates anxiety, stress, and a constant sense of failure because perfection is an impossible standard. The author introduces the concept of wholehearted living, which is about engaging with our lives from a place of worthiness. It means cultivating the courage, compassion, and connection to wake up in the morning and think, no matter what gets done and how much is left undone, I am enough. It's about letting go of the expectations and embracing who we are, flaws and all. The key to wholehearted living lies in developing practices that help us embrace vulnerability, let go of the fear of imperfection, and cultivate a sense of belonging.
One of the major themes in the book is vulnerability. The author challenges the conventional belief that vulnerability is a weakness. Instead, she argues that vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity.
It is the core of all meaningful human experiences. To live wholeheartedly, we must be willing to show up and be seen, even when there are no guarantees. This means allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and take emotional risks, even when we fear judgment or rejection. The willingness to be vulnerable, to expose our imperfections, is what creates the opportunity for connection and authentic relationships. Another important concept is shame resilience. Shame, the intensely painful feeling that we are unworthy of love and belonging, is universal and affects everyone. However, the difference between those who can thrive despite experiencing shame and those who get stuck in it lies in their ability to develop shame resilience. Shame resilience involves recognizing shame when it happens, understanding its triggers, and sharing our stories with trusted people who respond with empathy. When we talk about our shame, we take away its power. By practicing empathy and self compassion, we can learn to embrace our imperfections and see ourselves as deserving of love and belonging. The book also emphasizes the importance of self compassion. Many of us are our own worst critics, constantly judging ourselves harshly for our mistakes and shortcomings. Self compassion involves treating ourselves with the same kindness, concern, and support we would offer to a friend. It means recognizing that imperfection is a part of the shared human experience and that making mistakes does not make us less worthy of love. By practicing self compassion, we can let go of the unrealistic expectations of perfection and learn to accept ourselves as we are. In addition to self compassion, cultivating gratitude and joy is another essential practice for wholehearted living. Gratitude is about recognizing and appreciating the small, everyday moments that bring joy and meaning to our lives. It is a mindset that helps us focus on what we have rather than what we lack. When we practice gratitude regularly, we shift our focus away from scarcity and fear and towards abundance and contentment. Joy, on the other hand, is different from happiness. It is a deep-seated sense of peace and contentment that comes from embracing our imperfections and being grateful for the present moment. By cultivating gratitude and joy, we can learn to savor the small moments of beauty and connection that make life meaningful. Another crucial element of wholehearted living is cultivating a sense of belonging. True belonging does not require us to change who we are, it requires us to be who we are. It is about finding the courage to be authentic and to be seen for our true selves. When we try to fit in or mold ourselves to meet the expectations of others, we may gain temporary approval, but we sacrifice our true selves in the process. Authenticity is about letting go of who we think we should be and embracing who we truly are. It requires courage to show up, be vulnerable, and let ourselves be seen, even when it feels risky. The more we practice authenticity, the more we build genuine connections with others. Finally, the book highlights the importance of cultivating creativity, play, and rest. In our busy, achievement oriented culture, we often dismiss play and creativity as unproductive or frivolous. However, play is essential for our well being because it allows us to let go of our need for control and perfection. It gives us a chance to experience joy, connection, and spontaneity. Similarly, rest and relaxation are crucial for our physical and emotional health. By prioritizing rest and play, we can counteract the effects of stress and burnout and create space for joy and creativity in our lives. Overall, the central message of the gifts of imperfection is that embracing our imperfections is the key to living a meaningful, authentic, and fulfilling life. By letting go of perfectionism and practicing vulnerability, self-compassion, and gratitude, we can cultivate a sense of worthiness and connect with others in a deep and genuine way. It's about choosing to show up as we are, embracing our flaws, and finding the courage to live a wholehearted life. The pain of being ignored is a unique and deeply unsettling feeling that we've all experienced at some point. Whether it's a friend who doesn't return our calls, a colleague who overlooks our ideas in a meeting, or a loved one who seems distant and unavailable, the act of being ignored can trigger a wave of complex emotions. At its core, this pain comes from our intrinsic need for connection, validation, and recognition. Humans are inherently social beings wired for connection and interaction. When we are ignored, it can feel as if our very existence is being dismissed, and this taps into a primal fear of exclusion and rejection. This pain is often rooted in our early experiences. From childhood, we are conditioned to seek approval and attention from our caregivers. A baby cries for its mother, and the response it receives builds the foundation of trust and connection. As we grow, this need for acknowledgement doesn't disappear. Instead, it evolves as we enter new social spheres like school, friendships, and eventually the workplace. Being seen and heard becomes synonymous with feeling valued and accepted. When we are ignored, it disrupts this expectation, creating a cognitive dissonance between what we anticipate and what we receive. The resulting discomfort can manifest as sadness, anxiety, or even anger because it feels like a rejection of our worth. The pain of being ignored is magnified in situations where we have made ourselves vulnerable or put in significant effort. For instance, imagine sharing a heartfelt story or idea only to be met with silence or disinterest. This lack of acknowledgement feels like an invalidation of our thoughts, feelings, and by extension, our identity. It's as if the silence says you don't matter or your presence isn't significant enough to warrant a response. This perceived rejection can lead to feelings of unworthiness and self-doubt. We might start questioning our value, wondering what we did wrong or why we aren't good enough to receive the attention we crave. It's a painful cycle that can erode our self-esteem over time, making us less likely to express ourselves or take risks in the future. This experience isn't limited to personal relationships. In professional settings, being ignored can have serious implications for our sense of belonging and worth. Imagine working hard on a project, contributing ideas, and striving to make an impact, only to have your contributions overlooked or dismissed by your peers or superiors. The pain of being ignored in such contexts can be particularly intense because it challenges our professional identity and competence. We might feel invisible, as if our efforts are futile and our presence is irrelevant. Over time, this can lead to disengagement, burnout, and a decline in job satisfaction because the fundamental human need to feel seen and valued isn't being met. On a broader scale, social media has exacerbated this phenomenon. In the digital age, we often measure our worth by likes, comments, and shares. We post pictures, share thoughts, and seek validation through digital interactions. When our posts go unnoticed or fail to receive the engagement we hoped for, it can feel like a modern form of being ignored. This virtual rejection can trigger the same feelings of inadequacy and loneliness as being ignored in real life. The curated nature of social media, where we see the highlight reels of others' lives, only intensifies this pain. It creates a false narrative that everyone else is seen, valued, and celebrated while we remain in the shadows. The more we compare ourselves to others, the deeper this feeling of invisibility can become. The psychological impact of being ignored is profound. Research shows that social exclusion activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. This means that when we are ignored, our brains process this experience similarly to how they would process an injury. It's no wonder that it hurts so much. It's a wound, albeit an emotional one. The brain's response to this perceived threat can trigger a stress reaction, releasing cortisol and other stress hormones. Over time, if this feeling of being ignored persists, it can contribute to chronic stress, anxiety, and even depression. The emotional pain of being ignored is a signal from our brain that something is wrong, urging us to seek connection and validation. The act of being ignored can also lead to feelings of anger and resentment. When we reach out to someone and are met with silence, it can feel like a form of passive aggression or dismissal. We might start to interpret their behavior as intentional and malicious, even if that's not the case. This perception can create a sense of injustice and fuel anger, which often masks the underlying sadness and hurt. Anger in this context becomes a protective response, a way to shield ourselves from the vulnerability of feeling rejected. However, this anger can also drive a wedge between us and others, making it harder to rebuild the connection we crave. The pain of being ignored doesn't just affect our relationship with others, it can also distort our relationship with ourselves. When we feel ignored repeatedly, it's easy to internalize this experience as a reflection of our worth. We might start to believe that we are unimportant or that our feelings and thoughts don't matter. Misaligned priorities are a common source of frustration, dissatisfaction, and even heartbreak in our lives. They occur when there is a gap between what we say is important to us and where we actually invest our time, energy, and attention. Often, we may not even realize that our priorities are misaligned because we are caught up in the daily grind, chasing goals that society, our family, or our peers have set for us. However, the subtle or sometimes glaring discomfort we feel when our efforts seem to go unnoticed or when we find ourselves exhausted and unfulfilled can be a sign that our priorities do not reflect our true values. Misaligned priorities frequently manifest when we place too much emphasis on external validation rather than on what genuinely fulfills us. For instance, we might spend countless hours striving to excel in our careers because we believe that professional success will bring us happiness and recognition. We may work late nights, take on extra projects, and push ourselves to the limit, thinking that a promotion or a salary increase will be the ultimate reward. However, if we neglect our relationships, personal growth, and health in the process, we may find ourselves feeling empty despite achieving our professional goals. This is because our true values might include family, connection, creativity, or self-care, but we have been prioritizing societal standards of success instead. The pain of misaligned priorities often becomes apparent when we feel ignored or undervalued by those we are investing in. For example, if we are putting significant effort into a friendship or romantic relationship and the other person does not reciprocate that effort, it can feel like a personal rejection. We might find ourselves wondering why our time and love seem to go unnoticed. The reality, however, may be that we are prioritizing people who do not share the same level of commitment or interest in the relationship. This is not necessarily a reflection of our worth, but rather an indication that our priorities are not aligned with the other person's. We may be investing in connections out of habit, fear of loneliness, or a desire for approval rather than focusing on those who genuinely value and reciprocate our energy. Similarly, in professional settings, we might prioritize gaining recognition from specific colleagues, superiors, or clients, often at the expense of our own well-being. We might take on tasks that do not align with our skills or passions just to please others or prove our worth. Over time, this can lead to burnout and a sense of resentment because we are not honoring our own priorities or passions. Instead of focusing on meaningful work that aligns with our core values, we find ourselves trying to meet external expectations that leave us feeling drained and unfulfilled. The misalignment becomes evident when we realize that despite all our efforts, the recognition we were seeking does not bring the sense of accomplishment or joy we had hoped for. One of the reasons we struggle with misaligned priorities is because we often base our choices on external influences rather than our internal compass. From a young age, we are taught to prioritize certain achievements, good grades, prestigious jobs, high salaries, and social status. We internalize these societal benchmarks as measures of success, even if they do not align with what truly matters to us. For instance, someone who values creativity and self expression might find themselves stuck in a corporate job that offers financial stability but stifles their passion. Over time, this disconnect can lead to dissatisfaction and a feeling of being stuck, as their daily actions do not reflect their deeper desires and values. Another contributing factor to misaligned priorities is the fear of judgment and the pressure to conform. We often prioritize what we think we should be doing rather than what we genuinely want to do because we fear disappointing others or facing criticism. This can be especially true in personal relationships where we might say yes to social invitations, projects, or commitments out of obligation rather than genuine interest. We might find ourselves attending events or engaging in activities that do not bring us joy simply because we want to avoid conflict or appear agreeable. In doing so, we sacrifice our own needs and desires, prioritizing the comfort and expectations of others over our own well being. Over time, this pattern can lead to resentment and a sense of living a life that does not feel authentic or true to who we are. Recognizing and addressing misaligned priorities requires a willingness to pause and reflect on what truly matters to us. It means taking a step back from our daily routines and asking ourselves whether the way we spend our time aligns with our core values and long-term goals. It involves a level of introspection that can be uncomfortable, especially when we realize that we have been prioritizing the wrong things. For example, if someone values quality time with family but consistently prioritizes work over family dinners, there is a clear misalignment. The discomfort they feel is not because they are failing at work, but because they are neglecting something that is deeply important to them. By acknowledging this, they can start making conscious changes to realign their actions with their values, such as setting boundaries at work or carving out intentional family time. Realigning our priorities is a process that often requires difficult choices and honest conversations, both with ourselves and with others. It might mean setting boundaries in relationships where we feel our efforts are not valued, letting go of commitments that drain our energy, or changing career paths to pursue something more meaningful. It also requires us to practice self-compassion and forgive ourselves for the times we have prioritized the wrong things. After all, recognizing misaligned priorities is not a sign of failure, but a valuable insight into where we need to make changes. The discomfort of misaligned priorities is ultimately a signal that we are out of sync with ourselves. It is a reminder to listen to our inner voice and trust that we know what is best for our well-being and fulfillment. By realigning our actions with our true values, we can create a life that feels more authentic, purposeful, and satisfying. It is about shifting our focus from what we think we should prioritize to what truly matters to us, allowing us to invest our time and energy in people, activities, and goals that bring us genuine joy and fulfillment. Self-validation, as opposed to external validation, is the practice of finding worth, acceptance, and confidence from within rather than relying on others' opinions, feedback, or approval. In a world where we are constantly bombarded with messages about who we should be, how we should look, and what we should achieve, the tendency to seek external validation is widespread. We often find ourselves looking to others for reassurance that we are doing well, that we are worthy, or that we matter. However, this pursuit can be a double-edged sword. While external validation might offer temporary comfort or boost our self-esteem, it is fleeting and dependent on factors outside of our control. In contrast, self-validation is a more sustainable approach that empowers us to affirm our own worth and make choices based on our values, desires, and authentic selves. The problem with external validation is that it places our self-worth in the hands of others, making us dependent on their approval to feel good about ourselves. When we constantly seek validation from others, we are essentially giving them the power to define our value. This can lead to a cycle of anxiety, self-doubt, and people-pleasing. For instance, if we post a photo on social media and it doesn't receive as many likes or comments as we anticipated, we might start questioning our attractiveness or likability. If we share an idea at work and it is met with indifference, we might doubt our competence or intelligence. In both cases, we allow external reactions to dictate how we feel about ourselves, instead of recognizing our own inherent worth. Self-validation, on the other hand, is about affirming our own feelings, thoughts, and experiences without needing outside approval. It involves trusting our own judgment, recognizing our achievements, and embracing our flaws. It is an internal process where we acknowledge our emotions and give ourselves permission to feel and express them without seeking validation from others. For example, when we experience success, self validation means taking a moment to acknowledge our hard work and effort, regardless of whether others notice or praise us. When we make a mistake, it means being compassionate with ourselves and understanding that it's a part of learning rather than seeking reassurance from others that it's okay. By practicing self validation, we build a stronger, more resilient sense of self. We become less susceptible to the opinions and judgments of others because our self worth is not tied to external feedback. This doesn't mean that we ignore constructive criticism or become indifferent to others' opinions. Rather, it means that we do not let these opinions be the sole determinant of our worth or happiness. We learn to appreciate compliments and feedback without relying on them as our main source of self esteem. We become our own source of affirmation, which creates a sense of inner peace and stability that cannot be easily shaken by the changing opinions of others. A major component of self validation is learning to trust ourselves. Many of us have been conditioned to doubt our own feelings and experiences, often dismissing them as irrational or unimportant. This self doubt can make us overly reliant on external validation, as we seek others' opinions to confirm that what we feel or think is legitimate. However, when we practice self validation, we begin to trust that our feelings are valid simply because we feel them. We start to believe that our experiences and perceptions matter, even if others do not understand or agree with them. This self trust is crucial for building confidence and making decisions that are aligned with our true selves, rather than decisions based on what we think others expect of us. The journey towards self validation involves cultivating self awareness and self compassion. Self awareness helps us recognize when we are seeking external validation and why we might be doing so. It allows us to identify the underlying insecurities or fears that drive this behavior. For example, we might realize that our need for validation stems from a fear of rejection or a belief that we are not good enough. By acknowledging these feelings, we can begin to address them and work towards healing. Self compassion, on the other hand, is about treating ourselves with kindness and understanding when we fall short of our expectations or face criticism. It involves recognizing that everyone makes mistakes and that our worth is not determined by our ability to meet every standard set by ourselves or others. Developing self validation is a practice that requires time and patience. It is about making a conscious effort to affirm our worth regularly. One effective way to cultivate self validation is through positive self talk, instead of waiting for others to acknowledge our achievements. The process of turning inward begins with self reflection, a practice that allows us to examine our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors without judgment. Self reflection is an opportunity to pause and ask ourselves important questions. What are my true desires and goals? What are the beliefs and values that guide my actions? What fears or insecurities might be holding me back? In our busy lives, it's easy to become so focused on achieving external goals that we lose sight of these deeper questions. However, when we make time for self reflection, we gain valuable insights into our inner world. This awareness helps us identify areas where we may need to grow, heal, or change. For example, we might realize that we have been pursuing a career path that doesn't align with our true passions, or we might notice patterns of self-sabotage in our relationships. Turning inward also involves embracing solitude. In a culture that often glorifies busyness and constant social interaction, solitude can feel uncomfortable or even lonely. However, spending time alone is crucial for introspection and self-discovery. When we are alone without the distractions of others' opinions or societal pressures, we have the space to truly listen to our inner voice. We can hear our own thoughts, desires, and fears more clearly. It's in these moments of solitude that we can connect with our authentic selves, free from the noise and expectations of the outside world. Solitude gives us the opportunity to process our emotions, reflect on our experiences, and make sense of the challenges we face. It's a time for healing, recharging, and realigning with our true selves. Another important aspect of turning inward for growth is cultivating mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being present and fully engaged with the current moment without being distracted by thoughts of the past or worries about the future. It involves paying attention to our thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations with curiosity and without judgment. By practicing mindfulness, we become more attuned to our inner experiences. We start to notice the subtle thoughts and emotions that influence our actions and decisions. For example, we might become aware of how often we engage in negative self talk or how frequently we react out of fear, rather than from a place of calm and confidence. This awareness is the first step toward making conscious changes that support our growth and well being. Turning inward also means facing and accepting our shadows, the parts of ourselves that we may not like or that we try to hide. These could be our insecurities, fears, past traumas, or negative traits such as jealousy or anger. Confronting these aspects of ourselves can be challenging because it requires us to be honest about our flaws and vulnerabilities. However, this process is crucial for personal growth. When we avoid or deny these parts of ourselves, they continue to influence our behavior in unconscious ways, often leading to patterns that hold us back. By turning inward and acknowledging our shadows, we begin the process of healing and transformation. We learn to accept ourselves fully, not just the parts we like, but also the parts we find difficult to face. This self acceptance is a powerful foundation for authentic growth because it allows us to move forward from a place of wholeness rather than from a place of shame or self rejection. Another benefit of turning inward is the development of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence involves understanding and managing our own emotions, as well as recognizing and empathizing with the emotions of others. By turning inward and reflecting on our emotional experiences, we gain a better understanding of our triggers, needs, and emotional patterns. For example, we might notice that we tend to feel anxious in situations where we fear losing control, or we might recognize a pattern of anger when we feel disrespected. This awareness allows us to respond to our emotions in a more constructive way, rather than reacting impulsively. We become better equipped to navigate our emotional landscape, which in turn improves our relationships and overall well being. Turning inward also involves nurturing a connection with our intuition. Intuition is our inner knowing, the deep sense of understanding that arises without the need for logical reasoning. It's that gut feeling or instinct that tells us when something feels right or wrong. In our highly analytical and information driven society, we often prioritize rational thinking and dismiss our intuition. However, our intuition is a valuable guide that can lead us toward choices that align with our true selves. By turning inward and listening to this inner voice, we can make decisions that feel authentic and aligned with our values, rather than decisions based solely on external expectations or societal norms. Lastly, turning inward fosters a greater sense of self-compassion. Self-compassion involves treating ourselves with the same kindness, care, and understanding that we would offer to a friend in need. When we turn inward, we become more aware of our struggles, our pain, and our unmet needs. This awareness allows us to offer ourselves the compassion and support we may have been seeking from others. We learn to be gentle with ourselves during difficult times, to forgive ourselves for our mistakes, and to acknowledge our efforts and progress. This self-compassion becomes a source of strength, helping us navigate challenges with greater resilience and grace. Ultimately, turning inward for growth is about reconnecting with our authentic selves. It's a journey of self-discovery that requires patience, courage, and a willingness to face both the light and shadow aspects of who we are. By focusing on our inner world, we build a stronger foundation for lasting personal growth, greater emotional well-being, and a life that is aligned with our deepest values and desires. The process of turning inward is not about isolating ourselves from the world, but about developing a deeper relationship with ourselves so that we can engage with the world from a place of authenticity, clarity, and inner strength. Finding the right people is a crucial aspect of leading a fulfilling and meaningful life. The company we keep significantly impacts our mental, emotional, and even physical well-being. The right people are those who genuinely support, uplift, and challenge us to become the best versions of ourselves. They are the individuals who see us for who we truly are, who celebrate our successes, and who stand by us during our struggles. However, in a world full of diverse personalities and differing intentions, finding these people can be a challenging yet rewarding journey. It requires self-awareness, patience, and a willingness to let go of relationships that no longer serve our growth. One of the first steps in finding the right people is understanding our own values, needs, and desires. Self-awareness is a fundamental part of building meaningful relationships because it helps us recognize the qualities we value in others. If we value honesty, we will seek friends and partners who are straightforward and transparent. If we prioritize growth and self improvement, we will gravitate towards people who are also committed to personal development. By knowing ourselves better, we become more discerning in choosing who to let into our inner circle. This self awareness helps us set healthy boundaries and avoid investing time in relationships that are not aligned with our core values. It's important to note that finding the right people does not mean searching for perfect individuals who never make mistakes or always have the right answers. Rather, it is about connecting with people who are willing to grow, who strive to be better, and who are authentic in their interactions. The right people are those who are comfortable being vulnerable and who allow us to be vulnerable too. They create a safe space for us to express our true selves without fear of judgment or criticism. This mutual vulnerability fosters deeper, more meaningful connections because it is based on genuine trust and acceptance rather than superficial appearances or surface level interactions. The right people are also those who challenge us in constructive ways. They push us out of our comfort zones and encourage us to think differently, to explore new ideas, and to question our assumptions. While it's comforting to be surrounded by people who always agree with us, it's the ones who challenge our viewpoints in respectful and thoughtful ways who truly help us grow. These individuals do not challenge us to bring us down, but to help us see different perspectives and develop a more nuanced understanding of the world. They offer honest feedback and constructive criticism, not out of a desire to criticize, but because they genuinely care about our growth and well being. In the pursuit of finding the right people, it's essential to let go of relationships that are toxic or unfulfilling. Toxic relationships drain our energy, lower our self esteem, and prevent us from reaching our full potential. These relationships are often characterized by manipulation, constant criticism, lack of support, or one sided efforts. Letting go of toxic people can be incredibly difficult, especially if we have known them for a long time or if they are family members. However, prioritizing our mental and emotional health means making tough decisions about who we allow into our lives. It's not about harboring resentment or holding grudges. It's about recognizing that some people are not conducive to our well being and that it is okay to distance ourselves from them. Another important aspect of finding the right people is putting ourselves in environments where we are likely to meet individuals who share our interests and values. For instance, if we are passionate about fitness, joining a local sports team or attending gym classes can help us connect with like minded individuals. If we are interested in personal development, attending workshops, seminars, or book clubs focused on self improvement can be a great way to meet people who are on a similar journey. By actively engaging in communities that align with our interests, we increase our chances of meeting people who resonate with us on a deeper level. Authenticity plays a significant role in attracting the right people into our lives. When we show up as our true selves without trying to fit into societal molds or pretending to be someone we're not, we naturally attract people who appreciate us for who we are. Authenticity acts as a filter, repels those who do not resonate with our true selves and draws in those who do. It can be tempting to put on a facade, especially in new social situations where we want to be liked. However, maintaining a facade only leads to shallow connections based on false pretenses. By being authentic, we allow ourselves to form genuine relationships with people who appreciate us for our real qualities, quirks, and flaws. Moreover, the right people are those who not only provide support, but also reciprocate the love, kindness, and effort we offer. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and effort, where both parties invest time and energy into nurturing the connection. This reciprocity is key because it ensures that we are not the only ones giving in the relationship, we are also receiving the care and support we need. One-sided relationships where one person is always giving and the other is only taking can leave us feeling drained and unappreciated. The right people understand the importance of balance in relationships and are willing to make the effort to show up for us as much as we show up for them. Finding the right people also involves being open to new connections and experiences. It's easy to fall into the habit of sticking to our existing social circles, but this can limit our opportunities to meet new, potentially transformative individuals. Being open means stepping out of our comfort zones, attending new events, engaging in different activities, and starting conversations with strangers. It's about being willing to take a chance on new people, even if it feels intimidating at first. Some of the most impactful relationships can come from unexpected places or people we meet when we least expect it.